Hey, what's up, guys? How you doing? It is me, Mr. 4K Upscaler. I get a lot of messages through my inbox, my main inbox on the Gmail, where people contact me, people ask me questions, and I try to get back to them whenever I can. Believe it or not, I am busy. This is not my main gig that I do. This is something that I do out of the passion that I have. And the question always comes from those individuals who are on the fence. There's still people out there who have 1080p televisions. They have HDTV televisions, and that's okay. I understand that. Not everyone is buying into the 4K and HDR because they're still on the fence. They're not convinced, and they need more convincing, and that's understandable. I understand that. If I didn't know anything about the 4K resolution and wide color gamut and HDR, I would be on the fence too until I have more information before I can actually step into it. So what I'm going to try to do here, I'm going to try to give you a little bit of more information as to what you are missing when you don't have that 4K resolution and what you are missing when you don't have that color gamut with HDR. Very important to remember, in order for HDR to truly define itself to what it can do, your television set has to have a color gamut, okay? Which is measured by DCI-P3. If you have like DCI-P3 color measurement, that's like, let's say 89% or 90% color accuracy, then you got a color gamut, a really good color gamut. So you gotta have that color gamut, and above all, you have to have a peak brightness that's 1000 nits or above 1000 nits or close to 1000 nits. Okay, if it's below 1000 nits, if it's like 700, 800, then you're really not taking the full advantage of what the HDR really can do, because HDR thrives on that peak brightness. All right, so those are the two components for those of you who don't know that's really important for the HDR. Now, what you're looking at here is the software that's free of charge on the Xbox One X, and this is only on the Xbox One X. You can get this software called Insects. They're showing various different insects and flowers and grass for you to test the 4K resolution and HDR color gamut. Right now, currently, I have my 4K resolution turned off, and I have my HDR turned off. And this is what you're normally getting on your HDTV 1080p. Now, if you have never experienced HDR color gamut or 4K resolution, for you this would be acceptable. For you, this is something you're used to, and for you, this is normal, and you're okay with that. And I totally understand that. Now, I want you to see, and I want you to pay attention, what happens when we add a 4K resolution. You're going to notice a lot of different things happen here. You will notice that this beetle, this red bug here, it's not going to be so blurry. Right now, the bug, this bug over here, let's just call it a bug. This red bug, it's blurry, and it doesn't look sharp and redefined. That's because we're having less pixels, and therefore we're not getting that detail that we need. Remember, the more pixels, more detail. Less pixels, less detail. Sharpness has nothing to do with that. The pixels have to do with the detail. And I keep telling people that sharpness that you cranked up doesn't really do much. Okay, it just outlines the pixels a little bit, but it really doesn't bring you the detail. Just so people understand, for those of you who are not familiar, I'm not preaching this to those of you who are professionals and you know this. You're probably not going to watch this video. This is for those of you who don't know this, because you asked me all these questions, so that's why I'm making this video, to answer those questions to you on this video. For those of you who are not familiar with the pixels create the detail. The more pixels you have, the more detail you have. The higher pixel density level, the better detail. Okay, if you got 8.3 million pixels, you're gonna have a much better detail. If you got 33 million pixels, even more detail. If you got 79 million pixels, you're gonna have like incredible detail. However, you're gonna need a bigger canvas to appreciate all that detail because you got more pixels. So pixels create the detail. And that's what's gonna happen when I turn on the 4K resolution from 1080p to 4K with 8.3 million pixels. And I want you guys to pay attention right here on this red bug. Pay attention on this red bug, and you're gonna notice how sharper this red bug is going to be because we're gonna add high resolution. Check it out. Here we go. Did you notice that? I think you can notice it right here on this plant. You can see how more redefined and vivid this plant is when we turn on the 4K resolution. Or let's actually, as a matter of fact, let's go to another scene. Maybe this is not the best scene to show this. Okay, how about this? This is a good scene. Okay, here you can see it. Here, I think you will be able to see it right here. Right now, we have a 4K resolution on, and everything looks very sharp. That's because we got a higher pixel density, meaning higher detail. Once we turn off that higher resolution, the stuff becomes more softer. Like especially here, you see right here in the background with all the grass, now the grass it's blurry when we go back to 1080p. When we go back to 4K, the grass becomes more redefined. But you also have to remember, you really have to have a 4K TV to see this difference. It's kind of hard for me to do this through a video with a 1080p video. You really have to download this software, use this software, and you will see when you test this, let's say to your friend's house who has a 4K TV in HDR, and you use the software and you turn it off and on, you will notice a difference. I don't know if you can see it now, maybe here down below where this white plant is. Or here, for example. Like here's a good example right here. You see the detail of this bug much better now when you have the 4K resolution. And when you turn it off, it becomes more softer. It becomes just soft. I think the best word to use, it becomes softer. Why? Because you're losing detail because you have decreased resolution. Once you increase the resolution, you get a much detail. So this is the important part I want people to understand. This is why you need to switch to a 4K television and why you should switch to a 65-inch 4K television, because 65-inch, in my opinion, it's perfect TV to give you that, for you to appreciate that higher detail. Okay? Right now you can notice that this bug has much better detail. You can see the hairs on his legs. Once we turn off this 4K resolution, it becomes softer. Everything becomes softer, meaning you lose the detail. Now when you turn it on, you see the detail. So this is the important part I want people to understand. So again, this is the one caveat that you're going to be missing when you don't have a 4K television. Okay? And this is what you're going to be watching when you're just strictly watching 1080p, meaning you're not getting a higher detail. You're just getting a mediocre detail, which is still fine. HD is still fine, but it's not, you're still not getting the detail that you should be getting. Okay, and I've seen the end game in 1080p, and I've seen the end game, the Avengers, in 4K, and it's a huge difference, man. You appreciate the movie more in 4K because you got this higher detail. Okay. Now let's move on to the color gamut. Now, we don't have any color gamut here. Okay, we have only 4K resolution, and the color gamut it's missing. But we have the 4K resolution, which gives us the details. So that's the one bonus. Now, the second bonus that I think that's also very important, or probably the most important, it's high dynamic range. What high dynamic range does, it really gives you that natural picture quality. In a basic layman terms, I'm not going to jump into technical jogger of the wide color gamut and all that. I'm just going to simply tell you that what HDR does, it gives you a lifelike, natural picture. And when we turn on the color gamut, you're going to notice this bug looking more natural. As you see right now, the color on its red shelling, it's more redefined. It looks better. When we turn it off, it looks more dimmed. When we turn it on, it looks more redefined. Or we can go maybe to another scene here to show the color gamut. Like right here is a good example. Once we turn off that HDR, not only do we lose the detail in the background, and the sky looks grayish. It doesn't look light blue. It looks grayish. And we also lost the detail of the color on the its shell, the red shell. But when we turn the HDR on, not only are we going to get the color gamut, but we also get a much better contrast ratio and a better peak brightness. You see? You see how it was gray before? Now it's light sky blue. It's more natural. And I think clearly you guys can see this. You can see a huge difference. Same thing goes here. You know, you look at this bug, and look how redefined it is with the HDR. The colors on that orange flower, on that beetle, on that red bug shell looks more redefined. When you turn off the HDR, you lose the color gamut, you lose the contrast ratio, and you lose the peak brightness. And it looks bleak. Everything looks bleak. When you turn the HDR on, it just looks more better. I mean, clearly, you guys will be able to see this. Same here. When we turn off the HDR, everything looks kind of like, it looks kind of blend. You know, it looks bleak. It doesn't look redefined. And when you turn the HDR on, look at this. Look at on the right side here how redefined it becomes when you turn the HDR on. You get much better contrast ratio. It looks more natural. So you see more detail on that plant. And even here on this flower, when you turn off the HDR, it looks kind of bleak. When you turn it on, it looks more colorful. And the sky, you notice the sky on the left looks natural, looks more redefined. Same thing here. When we turn off the HDR, it looks kind of bleak. And when we turn it back on, look how beautiful it looks. And also notice the sky. You see, look at the sky now when you turn off the HDR. It looks bleak and it doesn't look normal. When you turn it back on, the HDR, it looks more redefined. So these are the things, and the reason I'm showing this video like this, it's for those of you who are on the fence. I want people to understand I'm not making this video for professionals. I'm not making this video for those of you who have 4K televisions. Believe it or not, there's still people out there who don't have 4K HDR television or 4K UHD TVs. They only have HD TVs, and that's okay. I understand that. Some people are still rocking HD TV. They don't have the UHD TV, and I'm making this TV for those of you who are on the fence. Instead of me writing to you, to every single individual on an email, I figured it's better if I just explain it to you through video like this. I mean, just look at the sky and look at the flower and look how much you're missing in terms of are you trying to tell me that you're going to be okay with this, or are you going to be okay with this? Which one do you choose? Do you prefer this with the HDR, or do you prefer with no HDR? How about this? We turn off HDR off, which is off, and then we turn off the 4K resolution. Look at that. Look how much detail you get when you turn on the 4K resolution, like right here. Look how much detail you get when you turn on the 4K resolution. And then you add the HDR with the 4K. Look at that. Let's turn off the HDR. Let's turn off the 4K. And look at it. It looks kind of flat. It looks kind of soft. Why? Because we don't have any more color gamut. We don't have any more contrast ratio. We don't have any more peak brightness. And we don't have any more 8.3 million pixels resolution. Let's turn on the resolution and let's turn on the color gamut. Look at that. And look at that. But this will also look hell of a lot much better when you do a test on your 4K TV. If you don't have a 4K TV, and if your friend has a 4K TV with the HDR, I would suggest go to your friend's house and try and do this test. Try and do this test, and you do it for yourself, and you will see. I think this demo, this software will convince you as to why you should consider the 4K HDR television. And when you experience this, when you see this in person and do the test yourself, then you're going to realize, wow, I've been really missing so much. Another great example is the Avatar 4K HDR conversion, which I have tested the other day. That's the best convincing demo video for those of you who still don't believe that HDR plays a huge role. Okay? And that conversion could have easily classified itself for Dolby Vision because the peak brightness was being used to 6000 with 12-bit compression. Conversion compression with H.265, okay? So it could have easily passed for Dolby Vision. But it was not, it was just HDR. But that demo shows you just the drastic difference that you get between watching that movie in 1080p without HDR, without 4K, and then bringing it to a gigantic 65-inch 4K HDR, especially if you have the OLED 65-inch, you notice that. I mean, I can do some more demos here, but I think you guys will get the idea. Like, same thing here. When you turn off the 4K resolution, when you turn off the HDR and the 4K, right now we have the 4K resolution on. Right now we turn it off and it becomes kind of blurry. When we turn the HDR, look at the difference. Look at the difference on the HDR here. And look at the detail that you get with the 4K resolution. And look how much you're missing when you turn off both HDR and 4K. But if you never experienced 4K and HDR, for you this will be acceptable. Your brain will accept the fact that this is how it is, and this is what I'm used to watching. So I get it. For everyday Joe everyday Mary, you know, if you never experienced 4K and HDR, then you don't know any different. So for you, this is acceptable. But if you have experienced the color gamut and the higher resolution of 4K, then for you, you would say, well, this is much better. You know, this is definitely much better than me losing my color gamut and losing my 4K resolution. Look at this. It just looks kind of bleak. It looks bleak. It looks soft and bleak. Now we get more detail and we get a color gamut. So, well, there you have it, guys. I hope this video helps you out a little bit, because I've been getting a lot of questions from people who are on the fence. I know that I have a majority of my subscribers, they have 4K television, and honestly, I don't see any reason why. I really don't see a reason why you still need to be rocking that HD TV, unless that HD TV it's a 3D TV. Then you can keep it. If it's a 3D TV, I would keep it, because passive 3D TVs are still great. I still use them, so I can understand if you still have it. But if you don't have a 3D and it's just a regular HD TV, I think you need to step up to a really good 4K HDR TV. And this holiday season, you're gonna bump into some really great deals, great pricing, great financing. So I think this holiday season, a lot of you should be able to step into 4K HDR. I think it's time. It's almost 2020. I think it's time to step in. I think now's the best time to step into 4K and HDR. Now's the best time. This holiday season is probably the best time to step into 4K and HDR. There's so much 4K and HDR content for you to watch out there, from Amazon, Netflix, 4K UHD Blu-ray movies, etc., etc., etc. There's tons of content for you to watch. So I think now is the best time to do it. All right, well, there you have it. Like I said, I only made this video for those of you who are on the fence, because you have asked me to give me an explanation as to why should I step into 4K and HDR. Now, I'm pretty sure even this video will not convince some of you. What I suggest that you do is go to your friend's house or someone you know who has a 4K HDR TV. Do this test demo, or look at the avatar demo test with 4K and HDR, and I think you will change your mind, especially if you look at some really great 4K HDR content demos, and there's plenty of 4K HDR content demos out there, especially Planet Earth 2 4K UHD Blu-ray disc. It's something I recommend. So go ahead and check it out and see it for yourself, and I'm pretty confident that you will notice the difference between what you already have and then what you're going to be getting with 4K and HDR. Alright guys, well, thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Have a good one. Take care.